flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you for all being here this afternoon. This is sort of an informal meeting. We just want to talk with our two finalists and just casual conversation, and hopefully we can learn some additional things about both and they can about us, and we want them to communicate with us as we communicate with them. A few things to get out of the way to start with. Excuse me. Want to extend our condolences to Mr. Bull, who lost his father this past week. It's never an easy thing to deal with, but we appreciate him being here under these circumstances. And you're always in our prayers. You and your family. Hopefully, before this evening is over, we will have a recommendation to make for a new superintendent. It will not be a recommendation for the new superintendent. It will be a recommendation to extend an opportunity to one of the candidates to enter into contract negotiations for the superintendency. So I just want to make that clear up front. If the board is ready after the two sessions with our candidates and we approve, then we will make the recommendation and vote for that one person. Before Ms. Jacobs, we appreciate you being here. Ms. Jacobs is, of course, one of the finalists, and I think is leaving here and going to a workshop in Montgomery for a few days, so we appreciate that. And I left my glasses in the truck. What does that say, Mr. Brewer?
Mr. Hicks, I will make a motion that we adopt the agenda for today.
Oh, we have to do that. Recommendation's been made that we adopt the agenda. Is there a motion that we approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Does that tell me anything else I need to do?
No, sir.
You think that would be an important thing to remember. We just briefly not met about any of this, but we have talked. What we're trying to accomplish today is for all of us to participate with Ms. Jacobs. And Ms. Jacobs, we want you to talk with us as well. We don't have an agenda. I did jot down, I hate to call it questions because I originally said this is not a question answer. And I don't know that I can read my question, but I will make this just to open things up. What attracted you to this district? Oh, that's perfect. Thank you, Brandon. What attracted you to this district, and what strengths did you see in our system?
Well, I would say probably the first thing was it's rare to see an opening. You don't have a lot of turnover in superintendents in the Wiregrass area. You've had some people that have been there for at least 4, 5, 6 years. And so something that was close by, something that was part of my community. You're just an extension from where I am right now. So that was the first attraction to it, location and opportunity. I'd say the second thing is I look at Ozark and I don't think you are very different from where I come from. You are much smaller other than that, but I think you face the same challenges that I work with now with your community, student discipline, parent involvement, some of those areas that I think we mirror a lot of. You're a city school system, I'm a city school system. Those come with a different kind of set of needs than a county. And so I think those were some of the things I looked at and I said, I want to try. I also looked at it too and said, because I told y'all this in my interview, it was not something that I really looked like I want to be superintendent one day. I didn't just get into education, I want to be superintendent. It came about when I ended up being the acting superintendent when Dennis Coe left. And I said, I did it for a little while and I said, I really do actually like this. I do a lot of this already. You don't realize you do a lot of it until you're sitting in that seat and you go, okay, a lot of this is what we do. So that kind of gave me a little taste of it, and I said, I would really love the opportunity. It just happened to be a few months later, this job came open, and I said, well, maybe God is trying to tell me something. Maybe he's saying, Lee, you need to go out there and just put your name out there, and so I did. And like I've told you before, you know, if it's not time for me, then that's okay, you know, and if this is not the path that I need to be on, then that's okay. So.
I thought it was interesting you mentioned a lot of superintendents been around us so long. In researching with AASB for this process I read, I think it was an average job life expectancy of a superintendent in Alabama is 3.5 to 4 years.
That's correct.
Why do you think is that? Really, that's a brief period of time, depending on the age you go into it. Why do you think that is? Stress or?
I definitely think it's a stress. Burnout. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think some of it has to do with your relationship between the superintendent and the board. Because if we can't be in a marriage, that's not going to work. I mean, that's really to me is the core to the whole thing of a superintendent's longevity. Is that individual needs to be able to communicate with you. You need to feel comfortable communicating with them. And we may not always agree, but we also need to come to a common agreement of what's best for the district. I think that's what you see in some of the surrounding areas, that they have that longevity because they have a relationship with their board. So to me, that's the number one. Unfortunately, that's not the same case for all systems.
Mr. Bull made a comment earlier, I think Ms. Locke said, what do we do with this last 10 minutes? And Mr. Bull said, I've known Mr. Hicks about 48 years, and I don't think there's going to be a problem with no question. I don't mean to dominate this, but you know, in this age, technology the way it is, there are a lot of older individuals, Facebook, those type of things, don't do that. How do you communicate, whether it's a school board or with the community, individuals that were parents that are now grandparents, how do we effectively do that other than Facebook?
I think some of it also goes back to, yes, I agree, there's social media and stuff, but some of it needs to be, there's nothing wrong with paper, okay? I mean, I know people don't always like to do that because it's not always the prettiest, but still doing like weekly or monthly newsletters from schools that go into folders that go home with children in elementary school. Still putting things, posting around the community at community centers, places where, you know, local churches, things like that, where, you know, people are going to see stuff. There's nothing wrong with getting the message out that way. There's also, part of that is telling your story. You need to have a relationship with the media. I don't watch 5 o'clock news very often because I'm not home at 5 o'clock. But there's a lot of people that are still home at 5 o'clock and they live and they watch that 5 o'clock news. My mother-in-law, my parents, we still need to have that relationship. So 5 o'clock news, 6 o'clock news, 7 in the morning, that can still have the message that we need to deliver to all of our stakeholders of any age.
You just mentioned telling our story. I know just based on reading all the information that you've given us and during our more formal interview time, you've done your homework on this. What is Ozark City School story? And what is the story we need to tell?
Well, I think it was evident from my conversations from you guys as well as the tours was you've had some decline in enrollment, okay? And that is a challenge right now. I think part of that story is that you need to tell your community what you offer. I think you offer a lot more than what you actually put out there. You've recently hired a communications individual, which is absolutely in the right direction, but that needs to definitely be boosted up, all right? And everything needs to be able to be, if we don't tell our story, someone else is going to tell your story for you at the end of the day. So we need to control the narrative. We need to get out there and tell them all the things that you're doing, the programs that you're offering, the extracurricular, and then you add in also your instructional components. Your instruction is good. You're not struggling in that area. It's not like I would look at you and go, that number one, instruction's the issue. I say number one is you guys really do not talk about yourself very much. You don't tell your stories very much. When I looked at your websites, I look at your Facebook, I know you're building, but I could tell it had not been built in a while. So number one is that. You need to get yourself out there and you need to let people know what you're offering. I would say the next thing I have found for telling your story is not just the social media's component, but having more community events where parents, so for instance, like you kick off school, back to school bash. If you could get community individuals to donate school supplies, let's have a big kickoff where the parents show up, it's an all-day event. Kids can get school supplies, you could have someone cooking out, there's food there, there's some programs that's available, tables set up so families can have assistance for things. Those kind of events need to be ongoing, not just one time, not just for special events, ongoing, and that's gonna reach all families, not just the ones that are on Facebook, but the ones that don't really wanna do Facebook and they wanna come and talk to you, they wanna shake your hand, they wanna have a conversation, that's gonna help with the stakeholders in that world. That's where all the family comes, not just the mom and dad, everybody.
I like that you said controlling the narrative. OCS has worked really hard to control the narrative and get out what we want to get out and make sure we're highlighting those things. What do you think is going to be the biggest barrier here?
It's hard to tell. I mean, to me, first of all, I think you've done some really good things. I think what I've already noticed is, like we said, your communication is a barrier. So if you can break down that wall right there, right? I think also building relationships is a barrier. That's difficult at this stage in our society. People do not build relationships like they should. I think that's where I'm going back to having more face-to-face events and things where teachers and parents are seeing each other in a different light, not just when I'm coming to the school for a parent-teacher conference. I'm seeing you outside of the school. So I do think building relationships is going to be a barrier, but it's not impossible to do. We just have to be able to identify what's keeping our parents from coming in and what's keeping our teachers from going out. So I think that would probably be a challenge. I think the other thing is I do notice that you have a little bit of turnover in your staffing. So the question would be why? That's going to probably go back to, in my opinion, and this is me not doing a complete assessment of everything, is that relationship building. Staff will stay if they believe in who they're working for. If they want to work for that individual, no matter if the job is hard or not, if they believe in their leader, they're going to want to stay. So I think we need to work on the relationship building between leaders and staff. And that comes back to leadership building. We have to build in ourselves. You have a few principals. You don't have anyone that's been there for over 5 years that I can see. So also part of that, we need some people to stay. We need to start building within our ranks, people rolling up. I think you would see longevity in your staffing then.
There's some ways you feel like we should probably rebuild those relationships.
Well, one thing for your leader component was something I had talked about is I do think you need to, there's a two-part to that. I think there needs to be some relationship between your central office and your schools, okay? That's a natural divide, but that needs to come together, which comes with multiple meetings and team building activities, getting each other to working well with each other. And I'm not saying they're not, I don't know enough, but I'm going to say that's probably the first thing. The next thing is that we need to find out from your staff what is keeping them from wanting to stay. And that's going to be some community meetings or what I would call staff engagement meetings where they could talk to me and feel free without an administrator there on what is keeping you from wanting to stay each year. What is making you want to leave? And then we need to figure out what those problems are and then we need to address them.
That's what I was going to follow up on your question.
With anyone in a position of this leadership, there's going to be a lot of after-hours participation, event attendance, sometimes weekend attendance and things that's going to be necessary. And I'm sure you've given some thought as to how you're going to find a balance with that. Can you address that?
I balance that now. I mean, in my position, I have to be at things at night. I have to be things on the weekends because we're a big enough system. It's too big for one person to be at everything. So prior to Dr. Askew, Dr. Coe, we would have to just divide up a lot of our duties. It's just kind of like at a high school, you have your APs and your principal, and sometimes we all have to just take shifts in athletic duty. So it's the same thing for community events, chamber meetings, city council meetings. We would just kind of divide and conquer. But that, I think with the system being smaller, it won't probably be any more than what I'm already doing at the size that I'm at right now. I mean, I go to quite a bit of events on the weekends. I'm at sports events all the time, no matter if my child's involved or not. So Friday night football games, I'm there. I try to go to a couple games for every sport every year. So just because it's really important for people to see that you're there, okay? You don't even have to say anything. The presence of someone showing up means a lot to people.
It does.
So I think it's important to be seen.
I want you to talk a little bit about your implementing some community involvement in all the school programs that you have. Because you've been in Dothan for 20 plus years, and you've had several different key positions and responsibilities. Can you just kind of tell us what did you do as you migrated from one position to the other to really get the community involved, or you go out into different parts of the Dothan community? Because Dothan is a bit larger than Ozark, so you've got quite a few sectors. So tell me something about your experiences with the community.
Well, I'll go back a few years. A few years ago, we started community schools called a Bright Key program. And it's where stakeholders come into the schools and they actually have say in what happens in the school. All right, you do like a data analysis with them. And you figure out from the community, because a lot of our schools are residential, just like yours are. Like you pop up right in the middle of a neighborhood, there's a school. So we had parents, we had community leaders come into several of our schools that we started those programs. And part of that is the barrier issue that we talked about, trying to get them to the school and getting them a reason to come to the school. So once we got them there, and it depended on the school, because every school was different. Some schools, they would show up if we had performances, and once they came for a performance, then we had them hooked. Some schools, if we had a cookout in the front yard of the school, they would show up, we had them hooked. So it depended on the group, okay, because every group's gonna be a little different. Once they got there, we started talking to them about what is your voice as a parent and a community leader. And when I mean that, like we have churches all around our schools. So we asked preachers to come, we asked community leaders, because parents felt more comfortable when they saw their pastor there. And so when we started that process, we started asking them, what do you want? I'm going to use Summer Street. What do you want at Summer Street? What do you want at Jerry Lee Fane? What do you want in your school? What do you expect your school to do for your community? So when we started those conversations, we developed that program over time. So some of them said, we would love to see a garden built at the school. So part of that was we started seeking out community involvement from different businesses on who could sponsor gardens. And then we had individuals take that on at the school. Now, that was some of our biggest community stuff we started. We had that at several schools. It's still going on with some of our schools. Not every one of our schools has that program, but it's about what the school and the stakeholders want. So that was one of the things that I've done in the past. Let me think. Other stuff that I've done with federal programs, you have to have advisory council. So I have that every year. I have participation of parents, staff, and community individuals. I also have them from like specialized treatment centers. I have to have meetings with them. So I seek the Diversion Center, Laura Oaks, to come in and also be part of these councils that would give us advice and suggestions on how should federal funds be used. And really a part of that is just explaining the why to people, because a lot of people don't really understand what you do with money. They think they do, but until they really see what goes on with it. So a lot of that was explaining why we have federal funds and how we use them, and then opening the floor for them to give suggestions to us. Part of that was just letting people have a voice and stuff and being heard. So those are some times that I've done community events or done some type of groups of advice. And I've done that many times in federal programs for sure. And Bright Key has been going on for probably 6 years now.
This is a definite put you on the spot question, but in your role as assistant superintendent, what has been the most rewarding part and the most challenging part of that position?
Okay. Challenging is definitely not hard to give you, okay? There's a list of that. Rewarding, I will be honest with you. I like to be, I'm a problem solver, okay? You bring a problem, I want to help you solve it. Now, I'm not going to solve it for you. We're going to do it together. But I'm going to be honest, some of the rewarding times that I see is that when I am actually helping schools solve major issues. As a principal, it is hard to sit there and I need to be an instructional leader. I also need to be a manager of staff. I also have to be the owner of my funds, and all of that balancing. Principals need support too. So being able to go in and work with our principals and really help them solve some of the problems and barriers that they have in their schools. Some of that is just resource allocation. I don't know how I'm going to pay for that. I know I want this. I don't know how I'm going to get this. I know I want to staff this way. I know I want to add music or art to my school, but I don't know how I can get it. My biggest thing is I sit down with them and I map it out and I work with them on coming up with a plan on how we can achieve their goal. So I would say that was some of the things I really pride myself and I find is great, because then the principal's able to go out and do that, which means the teachers are able to do what they need, and means ultimately it trickles down into student success and students walking out with what they need every day. So I would say that's probably one of the things I really enjoy about my job, is trying to find the yes in everything. The challenging sometimes is trying not to, the challenge, probably the biggest challenge is money. It always is. So you need something, you want something, but you don't have the funds for it. So how do we make it happen? So it's a lot of moving of chess pieces on the board and trying to figure out what we can trim from here, here, and here to make that happen. So some of that every year we go through budget stuff is challenging. When you sit down with a principal and you have to talk to them about their needs, and one of them is, do I want another third grade teacher or do I want an art teacher? That is a hard conversation to have. And that is hard to sit there and say, I have to choose this and not this. So unfortunately with over time, it's been very difficult to make those decisions. And we've tried our best to not eliminate things, but that is probably some of the most challenging, is when anytime you have to cut something from a school.
You've talked a lot about your higher level experience managing from the system down. How does that translate into the day-to-day leadership role in a smaller community school system that we would have? What does your day kind of look like, foresee it looking like in a smaller system like this?
I would say probably being in a smaller system, my day would change on the fact that I feel like I could be in your schools a lot more than I am right now. Unfortunately, because we're so big, some have to stay and do stuff. Some of us when you're doing budgets and money, it can take you a couple of days and weeks to get all that done before you can get back out into a school. And unfortunately, that's hard for me. But I would say from being here, one of the things I look forward to is I feel like I can be in the schools a lot more. I can be part of what's going on in the day-to-day world, which is going to help me make better decisions as a superintendent. Because I come from somewhere so big, we have to depend on each other to divide and conquer. We do really well communicating with each other, but unfortunately, we all cannot be in the same place at all the time. So we have to just share that luxury of who's going out, who's going to address that issue, who's got to stay back. So, but I do feel like being here, I'm going to be able to be more hands-on, and I look forward to that.
And a corollary to that is, what do you see the role of superintendent of Ozark City Schools as it relates to our community? What do you see your role and your involvement in the community?
Well, I would think that would be extremely high. I mean, to be honest, if we want parents to come back, to bring their students back, the superintendent's going to have to be out. They're going to have to be seen. They're going to have to go to places that parents are at and don't expect they're going to come to us. Start having some community meetings at local churches on Wednesday night and Sunday night where people are. Go to them. If you have a rec center, you have a community place, a Boys and Girls Club, all of those components, those are places that the superintendent just going out and talking to them, having coffee at night, just having an open discussion, what are the questions and concerns you have? I think being available makes people feel a little bit better, and they go, okay, I feel like I can talk and to you, and I want you to tell me, what's going on that's keeping you from bringing your child to Ozark. Okay, well, the only way I can fix it is know it. So the only way I can know it is if I have to go to them. And I think that's the biggest thing, is being present, being out there, and being available.
I guess my last question would be, that superintendent spot and places at the top are lonely. They're lonely spots sometimes. We talk about like building those relationships, and do you feel that you would be able to separate the two? We build the relationships, now we have someone that's not a place where they're working out to the best interest of what's best for our children at this point, and we need to sever our ties. Do you feel like you would do a good job in doing this?
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I mean, it's something I do now. I mean, there's a lot of parts of it. I worked with some people for years, and unfortunately, when it comes down to it, if it's not working out and it's not what's best for the kids, I hate to say it, but it's not personal. But at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for children. We have to do what's right for our district. And if that's not you in that position, then I'm sorry, but we've got to find somebody else. And so I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I do pretty good with, in my role, there's a lot of conversations I have to have with people because of cutting budgets and cutting stuff. So knowing that I have to do that it's hard. I'm not going to say it's not, but it's not undoable. I do it quite a bit. So,
Thank you.
I was looking at the news earlier this afternoon, and I think it was a previous clip, but it showed the First Lady walking out to do a news conference, and this robot, as I will refer to it, walking with her and had all the motions. And I remember looking the other day at Facebook, and it showed President Trump and Secretary Rubio and Vice President Vance doing all these crazy things, and it looked just like them. I mean, if I didn't know otherwise, how is AI going to affect, or how is it affecting education? What do we do with that if we go forward?
well, it's funny that you asked that. So my district currently is probably the only district that in the surrounding area that doesn't allow AI right now. So I want to say you're already ahead of us in that area. It's not going away. I mean, it's not. It's the same thing when technology came out and we had computers and stuff. Now, I don't think a child needs to be on a computer all the time, but keeping them from it and not teaching them how to use it appropriately is doing them a disjustice when they leave us. I mean, we need to give them the skills. So when they get to college, you need to learn how to use it. We need to teach the appropriate way to use it, as well as how, just in general, how to use technology appropriately. Because it goes back to what we put on social media, what we're writing on social media, what we're posting on pictures. They need to understand what their digital footprint is. If you want a job one day, they're going to Google you. They're going to look you up on Facebook. If you're putting things out there at the age of 16, 17, and 18, it's going to come back and get you. So part of that is teaching them how to be more responsible with their technology. AI is a component of that. So,
Do you think principals, teachers, educators are trained well enough to be teaching students how to handle that?
I don't think so. I think we're a little bit behind on that. I agree. I do think we need to do better about how to teach appropriate actions with it. But part of that too is I think we have some staff that doesn't know how to use it correctly either. Okay, so, and I don't mean that derogatory, but some of them don't feel comfortable. They don't know how to, but if they are taught and they're given some pieces of tools to see how it can help, it can make things more effective in your job, but it's not the end all. There's a balance. So it's like we've gone from one extreme to the other. Like we've had no technology, now we're doing nothing but technology. There's got to be a balance between the two worlds. So I think part of that is really having to put some parameters for our staff, but also giving them the training they need and putting parameters for our students and giving them the tools that they need, but teaching them how to use the tools.
Ms. Jacobs, you've been in education, I believe, my notes, 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel are goals, personal and professional, in 5 years? When you hit year 26, where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing?
I still feel like I'm gonna be in education. I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. I have small children. So, they're not coming off my payroll anytime soon. So, I'm gonna still need an income happening. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I did go, they tell you to go to the retirement meetings, within your 5 years. So I did go, attend one, just, I wanted to see what it looked like. What I realized is, number one, I need to keep working, okay? It's not gonna work. Insurance is gonna cost too much money. So, I don't foresee any of that happening, but I enjoy my job. I love what I do. I do it because I want to see a difference in children. I want to see a difference in my community. I want to see a difference in our staff. So I have no desire leaving anytime soon. I will still be here in 5 years. If it's here or if it's somewhere else, I will still be in education.
I can understand that. I've been in 46 and I still haven't left education.
It's just part of your core. Like, I can't see not doing something like that. I mean, I have talked about it. If I retired one day, I don't think I would go back and work for a company selling product. I really think I'd go back and work at, I'll be honest with you, because I'm special ed at the core of me at the end of the day, I'd love to go back and work with adults with disabilities, transitioning into that world. But that would be later down in life. But again, education is still going to be part of my world.
I know you mentioned some things that we had some really great programs up here, but what would you say is the strongest selling point for Alexis?
Your Career Tech Center is doing well, and that is a good, strong selling point for you. I think you can continue that, but I do think a better selling point for you is investing into your fine arts in your elementary schools and the younger ages. I mean, you've got some good things, but I really do think boosting that would help attract individuals back. It would also, because you've got a good band too. I mean, I just think you need to build up, like your secondary world has got quite a bit to offer, but your elementary world, your younger ages need more. And I think that's really where you would need to invest in, really, to attract people back.
Ms. Jacobs, I was in high school administration for 26 years and saw a lot of different positions come and go. The best assistant coach I ever worked with or saw was fantastic and became head coach, total loss. So just being an assistant of anything doesn't guarantee that you'll be successful for the other. With your experience, and another thing too, I want to share with you, I'm preaching to you, but when I was principal, I sat on that side of this thing. Then I got on the board 9 years ago, and this is a different world where you get to see it from a different perspective. And you've had many years as assistant superintendent. Do you think that has prepared you for all there is this person is? It's amazing what superintendent is responsible for that I never thought about in 26 years of administration. You have a good grasp of all that and feel comfortable that you could deal with that program.
Yes, and I'll tell you why I think that. Where I come from has had a lot of transition in superintendents. Unfortunately, I've had 11 working for Dothan City. So working with different people, with different backgrounds, with different personalities is definitely not a problem for me. I've done it many times, just being in that role. We've restructured. That was a huge part of what I did for a year and a half preparing for that. Closing schools, reopening schools, merging to one high school is not an easy thing to do. So I've done a lot of had my hands directly in those things. And so I feel like I've done some of the hardest things that a superintendent could ever do. I did it as an assistant superintendent, so I don't feel like it would be a challenge for me if I became a superintendent. I've already done some, I'm not gonna say, they're not terrible things, they were just very challenging and controversial. And anytime you restructure or change something in a community, you're gonna have the good and the bad with it. So that definitely was some growing time for me. I learned a lot of myself as a leader during that time. I definitely learned a lot about communication and definitely how to deal with people in a very emotional, fragile time. Because when you have one high school, you have parents, then you have grandparents that have history and tradition, and it was very hard for them. Until this day, it's still very hard for them. You have young upcomers that they don't see the tradition in those schools, and they go, I'm good, whatever, you know? They're just worried about what's gonna be the mascot. So, I mean, I think a lot of that has taught me how to communicate and how to deliver a message. So I feel like a lot of that, changing superintendents has definitely made me better. And working for a lot of them, I've worked for some good ones, I've worked for some really great ones, I've worked with some okay ones. So I feel like every one of them I have learned something from, just like as at a school level, when you're working for a principal. I've taken something from every one of them, I think, and built my chest of tools and figured out how that works for me and made myself a better leader because of it.
Talking about challenges, in your time as interim superintendent, what were the things that were your biggest challenges as far as working with the board?
Well, that's an interesting question. We had a board coming off and a board coming on, so we're elected. So, let's see, Dr. Coe was coming off, so he was retiring. We had a lot of controversy with our board members. We had a very divided board. Okay? And that was very difficult for them to communicate with each other. So I would say one of the biggest challenges was trying to communicate with them, because when you would communicate with one side, the other side didn't want to do that either. So then you had to communicate with that side and try to get them to agree to a middleman. I mean, even like scheduling a meeting sometimes was going to be difficult. So we helped get them through the interview process. I did the schedule. I worked with the administrative assistant. We made sure we had all those candidates there. We helped them get through the interviews. And then after that, the biggest problem is they were having difficulty deciding on an individual. So we had multiple meetings. We had a 4-3 kind of split. So there was a lot of conversations, and I'm sure everybody knows what those were because they were very public. We had a lot of, I call them keyboard warriors out there that had opinions of doing it too, that unfortunately was causing issues. We even had someone that filed in conjunction against the board for, having meetings in private and having conversations that you're not supposed to have outside of this room. So all of that was happening in the 2 months that I was the acting, and we were going to open school. And we're going to start school in August. We had our opening day. Everybody had to be staffed. You still are hiring. You're still trying to get programs ready. With football season's about to start. Your marching band's about to go. So all of that was occurring. So I would say the biggest challenge was trying to get them to, 1, come together, and 2, make a decision. And you had to learn to really sit up there, and sometimes you can't control what they do, and you couldn't. That was their choice, what they wanted to do as a board member. But my biggest thing was to make sure we had an agenda, we got to the meeting, and we tried our best to make sure we're making a decision on what it is. I mean, it took us over a month to get Dr. Askew hired because there was so much discussion and argument around the contract and who was doing the contract. And so they had lots of controversy. I mean, and I hate that, but that was a challenge. It was.
Well, and along those lines, this is a two-way interview, so to speak. What are you looking for in the board?
Well, I would say, well, that's interesting you said, because one of my questions was What are you looking for to the board? It was more about what's your ideal relationship that you felt on your end. On my end, I want a two-way street. I want to be able to have a conversation. I want to be able to feel comfortable to pick up the phone and call Ms. Locke if I want to and say, hey, can I pick your brain on something? I want to get your opinion. I want to get your thoughts. I want to have that type of relationship. Unfortunately, not all boards and supers have that, but I feel like that's, to me, if we had that kind of dialogue, then we're going to be able to do anything we want, and anything is available for us to tackle together, because we can have honest conversation and dialogue. And that doesn't mean we're going to agree. I absolutely think there's going to be times that we disagree about things, or about the way something goes, or how we should handle it. But that doesn't mean that we're not on the same side and team. And I think sometimes those type of discourse causes people a divide, and they can't figure out how to get past it. I want to be able to have a relationship that we can get past things, that I trust you and you trust me. So to me, that's an ideal relationship.
What else would you like to ask us?
Oh, okay. Well, part of that was like, what's your ideal relationship with a superintendent, and how do you like to be communicated with? Because everybody likes a different way. Some people like to have one-on-one meetings. Some people say, hey, shoot me an email, I'm good with that. So I'd like to kind of hear what is your preference on communication?
Let's see. Now Larry is the
No,
current.
we can't on that.
Larry's the current president, I'm a past president, and then these three are coming on, but they will be. But during my tenure as president of the school board, I like the idea that I did have an ongoing dialogue with the superintendent, that I was frequently consulted, or he'd pick up and say, look, I have a situation that's going on right now. And he would like pick my brain and see how did I feel about it, how did I think the board would react. And I think Larry might get some of that same kind of dialogue. And then we have, we've got 5 individuals, we got different personalities, different responsibilities, backgrounds and all that. But we also share certain likes about commitment to the city, to the students, to the program services that we have going on at school. And also, we've gone through some very trying times with the money. It's COVID, Larry and I were on board during COVID. Nikki might have come in, but that was just something I'd never experienced as a teacher or parent or anything, going through COVID. And I hope we never go through that again. But the good thing about it, we were given some funds.
Mm-hmm.
And those funds really benefited our students, our facilities. We got some really great results by being blessed with those funds. And I think that working very closely with the superintendent, he would communicate with us about his intentions of big purchases and things that we need, because after all, we entrust the superintendent to make those type decisions on what we're going to purchase, what we need, how much it's going to cost, and all that. That's the warden of our finances. And some of us are very committed to making sure they're kind of conservative in some of the spending, even though we all want what's best for kids. We want to just have an abundance of everything, but they can't always have it. Sometimes you got to prioritize some things. You're going to have to say no to some ones will be very heartbroken because they don't get something that they think they're entitled to. And we know that someone else in the area needs it far worse than they do.
I'm the newest member of the board. I've served on other types of boards before, but not a school board. And I can say what I want, what I have now, is mutual respect from the superintendent. The ability to pick up the phone, ask a question on both sides, or text, whatever is most expedient. But I feel confident in being able to express my thoughts and my views and have those listened to. And I think the superintendent feels the same way. And I would guess that we all feel that way, that there is that mutual respect and that mutual ability to communicate with one another, even if we don't agree.
And then we won't be penalized or judged
No.
because we feel one way or the other.
You know, I've watched some of the Dothan City and I've clutched my pearls, and oh my gosh, we would never. You know, but it's almost like you said about being in a marriage, you know, because you give or take. Some days aren't great days. Some great days you don't agree with everything they say, and then some days you want to crawl in their skin because you're like, yes, I'm there, you know. So you know, it's just like, so, you know, it's just weird, you know. I do feel like sometimes you get to a place where you don't respect each other because people get to a place where power is more important than the team or the whole group. And I think that will lead to some problems. We haven't had any of those issues here. I feel like every single person on this board, to include Mr. Gertman, if there was an issue, I could call them. I wouldn't hesitate to call them. And we're looking for that same type of relationship from somebody coming in. We're spoiled, and you know, when you get spoiled, that's what you want because that's what you've gotten. So that's it.
I would say too that we want an incoming superintendent to have the same focus that we do, and that is on what's important, what's best for our students, because they are our number one priority. And we want to know that our superintendent has that at heart too.
You mentioned the vision in your interview a lot. We do. We have to have the same vision. We all got to be on the same page. And if we're not, somewhere along the line, you can see where it comes apart, because when the vision's not the same, then we're on different paths. It's almost like I'm a social worker at heart. So you're running a plan. We always tell our kids we're running a regular plan, and then we're running a concurrent plan. The concurrent plan has to be the same, because if that plan doesn't work out, then you have nothing. And now we're starting back. So we want to always make sure we're on the same path.
You know, I serve on a zillion boards around this community in Wiregrass, and one of the most challenging things of working with a director, executive director, whatever it may be, is when you have someone in that position that I want the Paul Harvey. I don't want just the good. I want the rest of the story. I want the good, the bad, the ugly before I can make a full decision, not just the little snippet of this is what good, because this is where I need y'all to go with this. You know, I want you to be Paul Harvey and tell me good, bad, and ugly of everything.
Not the whole story.
Yes, and I think that, because that goes back to trust, and without trust, we don't have anything. And if we have trust and we can communicate openly, even if it's the good, the bad, or the ugly, we can get through anything, no matter where we fall on agreement or disagreement.
Completely agree with that.
I think you can tell when we visited our schools, I like to stay on schedule. So, do you have any other questions for us?
No, I mean, really, I think some of your questions answered my questions, so I mean, I'm good.
Well, we need to, I gotta go to the truck and get my glasses. I want to use my viewer one more time.
Okay.
And then the final question, if you can
Okay.
respond to. What are the major challenges for education in Alabama for the next few years?
I'm gonna say for Alabama, funding is always going to be a challenge for the foundational K-12 programming for Alabama as we move forward with what legislation decides. So I do think that's always going to be a challenge, but we will start seeing some more with that. I think the other thing is going to be we have a lot of restrictions and guidelines that have been put on our schools by the legislation. You have your Literacy and Numeracy Act and stuff like, and I'm not saying I'm against those, but there's a lot of excessive amount of paperwork and compliance that we have put more on. And unfortunately, we are very compliance driven instead of looking at what is the best for us in implementation and getting success. Compliance is one thing, and I don't say not throw it out, but you can't have just compliance with it. And so I do think our state has gotten very heavy on that, about checking a box and not really seeing about what's the end factor to things. So the challenge is how do I check that box, but I still get the results that I need at the end of it? So you got to be able to do both, and that is a challenge. So I think that's some of the things that we're going to see down the road as it gets more difficult with it. So I would say definitely funding in their compliance component with the legislation and the laws. We have a lot of laws that come out every year, and some are really good and some cause more and more problems. So I think, like for instance, there's a law that's coming about screen time and limiting that. That's to me, a good thing. Because unfortunately, like I said, we've gone to one extreme sometimes. So, but on the other side of that, our state requires these young children to take their test online. Their standardized test, right? Your ACT can be done by paper with our high schoolers, but we've got a second grader trying to figure out how to use a mouse over there and click and type narratives. Now, how are we but we're gonna have to teach them how to do all of that, because see, typing is not something that they're used to doing. They're used to typing with thumbs, not all 5 digits, So, I mean, I think some of that is really where we're gonna have to advocate for our districts and saying, I get where you're saying on screen time, but why are we doing tests that are all digitized? Why are we not having a balance? So you got one hand doing one thing and not seeing the other. So I think some of the challenge is that as superintendents, we have to advocate for our districts. We have to go up there and we have to explain that to the legislators and to the powers to be. And that's going to be a challenge, and it's always been a challenge. It will always be one, but I think that is definitely a role that a superintendent has to be willing to take on.
We appreciate your time. We appreciate your interest in our system, and we wish you the best. And hope you have a good conference board and everything else.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
We're going to take about a 7-minute break. Now, so put that right there. I want to welcome Ms. Williams, our other finalist, who is here for this period of time. So I want to encourage you to participate with us. It's very casual. We do have some questions, but not to put you on the spot. Try not to do that anyway. I would like to start, Marcy, and this is not a good question for you because you're here, but tell us why you want to be superintendent of Ozark City School.
Because this is not just a job that I saw on an application. It's not something that I just chose off to do. So this is actually something that I am. This is a community which I'm a part of. I'm from Ozark. This is a community that helped grow who I am. I am a former student, graduated in 1995 at Carroll High School. And this isn't something just I'm checking off a list to say that I want to be the next superintendent because to be the next notch on my belt, this is something that means something to me. So Ozark City Schools helped build me and who I am today. So therefore, by being the next superintendent, I believe that this is something I can do to help grow our community, to help make it be a place that my son, when he graduates from high school, can grow up in Ozark, graduate from the high school that my husband and I graduated from, and to be a place that is special to all of us. It's not just one of those places where, as some people have looked into or have done to better their resume, it's something that means something to me. So that's the reason why I want to be superintendent, because I know what Ozark can be and what Ozark City Schools has been, what it can be, and continue to be.
You've worked at the Central. Refresh our memory, what experience you have at the superintendent level at this point.
And I was federal programs director here in Ozark for 4 years. And so in doing that, I worked very closely with our CSFO, the principals, superintendent, along with transportation, everyone. I also was over testing coordinator, and I dealt with discipline. I was over the discipline for the district as well. So any students that, if they did anything outside of the grand scheme of things that like a level 3 or 4, that would require them to go to our alternative school. I dealt with that here at central office as well.
I mentioned earlier in the previous conversation we had that as principal for 20-something years sitting over there,
Yes, sir.
I got to see this board and superintendent operate,
Mhm.
but I had no idea until I got on this side how much responsibility there is and all the different avenues that you have to know and expect. And you have a good feel for that. Do you feel like that transit? It would be difficult. I'm not trying to say that at all, but are you comfortable that that could be made?
Absolutely. When I was first here under the direction of Mr. Gartman, prior to coming to central office as the federal programs director, I was only assistant principal. And as the assistant principal, I didn't have any principal experience. And so at that time, Mr. Gartman allowed me to go to the superintendent's PD in Florence. And so at that moment, it was one of the things where, because I didn't have the principal experience, I went back and we talked, and he knew that eventually I did want to one day be a superintendent, and we talked about it. And he and I discussed that the importance of having the principal building leadership is one of the things that could help with a superintendent, because not only as federal programs, I wasn't over as far as people, employees, as you are being a principal when you're actually over employees, hiring and firing and doing those things. And so with me not having that experience, when the position as principal at Carroll High School came open, I did take it because I was leery. I was very leery about taking that position. But the thing is that it was one of the ones that I knew that I wanted to, again, an opportunity to help a school that I was a part of that helped me. So therefore, by being the principal at the high school, it has helped me. And I think, because like you said, as we all know, we can say that we can do the job and we know the job and we're ready for the job, and I believe I am. However, once you get into the seat, it's totally different, right? And so we think we have that idea. And so with that being said, being the principal the last 3 years, I believe has helped grow and helped me to be able to say that I think I am ready to be the superintendent because of the hiring. We just hired our new football coach. There's other hirings that we just had, dealing with parents, dealing with teachers, not only parents, teachers, and the adults, but also students. And so that's one of the things as a principal, you get that experience that will help me as a superintendent. So that's what I believe.
Of all the roles that you, or all the hats you've worn with Ozark City over the years, what do you think has most shaped you as a leader and prepared you for this position?
Again, I believe the principalship is the one that has helped me. Also, I think all of them, because when you think about it, like I just said, working in the high school, you deal with parents, you deal with, the students, teachers, all of the adults that come along with it, but also federal programs, you deal with the money, and so money also with the high school. And so, but by, I think, working with federal programs and being a Title I school, it helped prepare me in the principalship and knowing the things that need to be done because of the funding of our federal programs and knowing how to spend the money, what to spend the money on, private and public funds. So, and then again, testing coordinator, dealing with that, making sure that you don't have irregularity. So, in all honesty, all of that has helped shape the person I am today.
And I guess along those lines, you've kind of grown up in Ozark City schools from student to teacher to principal to everything. What do you think is going to be the biggest challenge in the role of superintendent? Because there's a lot of people that work in our system that you grew up with, you went to school with, you worked with, they were maybe your boss, you may be their boss. What do you think is going to be your biggest challenge in executing the job of superintendent?
I think one of the biggest challenges is the open door policy that I tend to have, and people feeling that they can come talk to me and think that just because they know my number, that is going to change right then, but having to make those hard decisions and have those hard conversations. But at the same time, I'm ready for that because of having those relationships already built. I think we'll be able to benefit in having that, because the thing is that when you think of it, if I can talk to you and if I can tell you the why behind the decision, you know that you know my heart because you know who I am. And I think that makes a big difference.
I don't have a question because you answered my question within the question.
Well, as superintendent, you're going to have a lot of responsibilities during your work hours, but you're also going to have a lot of things that you're expected to do outside of work, normal work hours, in the evenings, on weekends. Tell us a little bit about how you feel you can handle that and balance that as superintendent.
And Ms. Ivy, I balance everything pretty well. And so the thing is that right now I don't sleep very well. Many people know that about me. I wake up early. I am the type of person that I want to make sure everything is done correctly. And so in doing so, I'm the type of person that will do the job, and even if it means on the weekend, Sundays are the best days. I send my week at a glance on Sundays at 5 o'clock, and that's the way I think of it because I feel like it starts my week. And so by being able to, currently I am a mom and of a 10-year-old, and he keeps me very busy, but it's not anything to see me at the ball fields doing work and taking phone calls. Like even this week we were on a cruise and I actually didn't have Wi-Fi service. I can only text via iPhone, so I had called one of my sisters to say, hey, can you check my email? And this is what I need you to say in the email. So the thing is that I know how to multitask. I know how to delegate. I know how to be the person that I can reach out. And if I need help, I know how to call people to ask for help as well. So I believe that I can balance by doing the job and being a mom and doing it successfully as well.
And we've talked a lot about administrative things. You've been up here in the central office, you handle the funds and your principal positions and all that. But in your experiences, you worked in other systems and you had other roles.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you think some of those other roles that you had in your earlier careers prepared you for this point right now?
And my earlier roles, I was an instructional coach, so that will allow me to work with the teachers and knowing what the teachers are going through. Because as a former math teacher, math is everyone's favorite subject in my mind. Anyways, we know it's really not. But the thing is that by being able to communicate with those teachers and understand their frustrations, and I know it's different because I haven't been in the classroom for many years. However, I understand their frustrations when it comes to working with students, especially students that don't want to learn, especially students that are struggling to learn, especially those students that don't want to be at school. And so by having that prior experience and being able to talk to those teachers and being able to relate to them, I think it's going to be relatable for me as a superintendent.
You know, as the high school principal, man, I've been here forever. What are the strengths of those RC schools?
The strengths of the RC schools are our people, our families, and the community in which it built, because look behind me, the people are here because of I think of what they believe in. And so they truly understand. Like I was talking to someone today, and they were saying how Ozark is one of those places where they could call upon and see what they want to bring in our agriculture at the high school. That's one of the things that I feel that if we want to do that, we could work together and we can make that happen. But the thing is it goes back to the support. Ozark is very supportive of their own. Ozark wants to be the best that they can be, and they're willing to put in the work. They're willing to go the extra mile. They're willing to do anything that they need to do to help us be successful.
To quote a great man, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
What's the first thing you would change about Ozark City Schools, and what's the hill that you're gonna die on to protect from never changing?
Mm-hmm. Because I know what Ozark needs, and I am the type of person that will tell you that the first thing that I would change is right now we have spent money, a lot of money. So one of the things that we need to look at are our finances. And so looking to make sure that what we're spending on is necessary expenditures and not things that we have that we may or may not need to be spending money on. So those are one of the things that I would definitely look at. I would talk to our CSFO to ensure that those expenses are done correctly. One of the things that I would not change, and also I'll probably change our press box area and make some changes there as well. That would probably be the very first thing I would do too. The second thing that I would die on the hill for, and not ever change. Our colors are red and white, and that is it. Black is an accent color. Until that is that hill that I would totally die on. Everybody knows we love that about that our colors are red and white. Black, definitely an accent color. Be it.
We've talked a little about controlling the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I love everything about like telling our own story, putting out what we want to put out. What are some things that you think that we don't do a well enough job putting out about Ozark City Schools?
And everything, to be honest with you. And the thing is that like if you look at Carroll High's Facebook page, we put out the fun stuff. You are seeing not only what we're doing in the high school educationally, but you're also seeing that our teachers are enjoying themselves, the students like they're having fun. I need to see that across the board. And the thing is that we have great kids. People don't realize that because of the narrative that we have put out there and saying that when people go on Facebook because they dislike something and that's the first thing you see, and the next thing you know, there's 50 million things that are underneath there, and half of them are not even true, and half those people, kids don't even go to school here. And so the thing is that when that happens, we need to make sure that they see what we're doing, like the All Pro Dads at Lisaby. We're doing that at Lisaby and Mixon, but that's just one of the things. They're also doing other great things at Lisaby. But the thing is that we need to make sure that people in the community are seeing what our teachers are doing, seeing that the teachers are getting down, playing with the kids, see that they're actually entertaining and enjoying being in the school system. And so that's what we need to change. We need to make sure that we see that the things that we're showing at DA as well, like we have a STEM program. We also have music at Mixon. I don't really realize that many people see that we have music in all of our schools, not just at the high school, but also at Lisaby, and so through the high school. And so that's one of the things that I've had my parent meetings, and so by having my parent meetings, I showcase what we offer. And so one of the things is that we had our choir perform one parent meeting, because a lot of people didn't realize we had choir at the high school. So by putting that out there, inviting parents, inviting people into the schools, that's how we're going to have to change our narrative. And also, whenever we see someone post something negative, we need to flip the script and say, that's not true. And then instead of complaining on Facebook, actually have the confidence, the with it all, to go to the principal there and let them know that you're having an issue or problem and let them fix it that way.
I think a lot of what you just said goes back to a word that has come up no telling how many times during this process. Is transparency.
That's right.
How do we as a system need to improve transparency? And what does that mean? What does transparency mean?
Transparency means actually being transparent, not fake, because people truly realize when people are being real and when they're not being real. And so the thing is that going out there, showing them what you're doing, but not only talk about it, but be about it, as the kids would say. And that's the thing, is that that's important, because, you know, talk is cheap, and we can all talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk. And the thing is that being transparent means actually showing up, being there, being present. That's what transparency is. And that's the thing about anyone, not just the people in Ozark, but any person knows when you're being real and when you're being fake, and when you're just showing up as a photo op versus actually being there because you want to be there and you know the people that are there. That's what transparency is.
Another topic that came up a lot dealt with parental involvement. Not that we're doing it bad, I'm not being critical of anybody, but obviously we need to go in a little bit of different direction than what we're doing to get more parental engagement in our community. What would you do to create a better environment there?
Again, meeting parents where they are. So like, for instance, parent meetings. I've had parent meetings on a Sunday. I've had parent meetings in the morning time. I've had parent meetings in lunch time, after school, trying to get the parents a time that parents can actually show up and be there, because our parents are working. If transportation is an issue for our parents, which a lot of times it is, then maybe what we need to do is find a time that we can go to where they are. But the thing is that I've had it where my meetings are on Sundays at school. We've had parent meetings at 7:30 in the morning, so that when they're dropping their kids off, they can come in for 30 minutes and then make it to work at 8 o'clock. We've had parent meetings after school, provide food, provide an opportunity for them to, because most of my parent meetings have food, people come when it's food, and so have it where people want to be there. Actually have activities that they show up to, because like one of the things I know that both our elementary schools have done is they had the Christmas Bazaar, and they've also done the actual activities where they had the hay rides and things like that. And they tied it with reading and math, but it encouraged the parents to want to come because the kids want to be there, and it's something educational but fun at the same time. But whenever you have something that's entertaining, parents will want to come because their kids want to be there. So again, have things that are available for parents that they enjoy being at.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
You know, talk you and to other people about what can the board look for at the end of year one to see what differences have been made. And believe it or not, all of us in this room, we know everybody's names, but you know, some of the custodians may not know your name. Some of the bus drivers may, even if you're selected, may not know your name. Some of those new second grade teachers may not know your name, but how are they going to know you made a difference at the end of the year? What's their job going to feel different? how are they going to be more effective at the end of year one?
Because they're gonna wanna come back. They're gonna wanna be here, and they're gonna wanna stay here, and they're gonna continue to help grow Ozark City Schools. That's what they're gonna feel like. And so in doing that, that's gonna be me showing up for them. That's, and not just me, but all of us showing up for them, letting them know that we care by doing different things. And so when we talk about teacher retention, one of the things that we talk about, and when you mentioned other districts I've been in, I was in Maryland. And so one of the things that we did, and we did it here in Ozark as well, a long time ago, was that we had it where our new teachers came in and we would do little activities with them. And so it was kind of like a cohort. So that way you knew who the new teachers were. Because the thing is that, I mean, we've all worked, and the majority of our time is spent where? At work. And so it becomes your work family. And so the thing is that when you feel comfortable at work and enjoying yourself while you're at work, because you spend most of your time there, you're going to want to continue to go to work. So by building those relationships within the school system is going to want teachers to stay here, and they're going to enjoy their job more. So that's going to be the difference, because they're going to want to stay where they are.
I think we all recognize the need for retaining our teachers and making them feel safe and happy here. But then what do we need to do to take the next step to convert that into growth of our students and development of our students and making them more successful?
Right. And so by doing that, if you're here and you're enjoying your job, then you're going to want to be successful, meaning you're going to do everything that you need to do to be successful, because we already have great people in place. You know, at every school, we have instructional coaches, math coaches, and that is at Lisaby, Mason, DA, and Carroll. That is there to help our teachers. And so what we need to be doing is investing in our teachers by doing PD. And so meaningful PD that will help them, allow them to have the growth, allow them to teach the standards, allow them to teach them effectively. So that's going to be the key. And so to help get our students to the next level.
You know, being raised in a community, working in a job that you're applying for can be a tremendous advantage, but it can also be a disadvantage.
Correct.
How do you think that could be a disadvantage for you as superintendent?
Again, the disadvantage is people feeling that they can just come to me and get what they want because they know me. And so that could be, again, one of the things that you can be a disadvantage, and you can also switch it into an advantage, because as I stated before, by knowing me and knowing that I'm not going to do X, Y, or Z, and knowing the reason behind that, then they will feel more comfortable, because they're like, it's Marcy. So they feel that they understand that they're not going to be able to get away with anything. And hopefully they will understand by not wanting to take advantage of the situation.
I used this question last time.
Okay.
Superintendent spots, lonely place up top.
Yes.
Do you feel like, I don't second guess that you are a relationship builder. Do you feel like you are able to sever the ties when it's no longer beneficial to our children?
Yes, I do. I do, I have in other cases. And so, because remember, this job is for the people, it's for our students. And so that's what I'm here for. And so I'm not here for friendships, I'm here to what's best for our students. And so absolutely, I can and I will. And have.
You have, what, over 26 years,
Yes, ma'am.
and when you look at the overall career of those 26 years, kind of give us a feel of what percentage was management, what percentage was really working with the children, and also the community, because you are part of it.
As far as percentage of working with kids, the only part that I would say would be 90% was working with students and kids, because as federal programs, that was the one part I didn't get a chance to work with the kids. And so that was 4 out of 26 or so. And as far as the community, I would say 100%, because no matter where I was still talking to and a part of the community. And so I still have friends in every city that I worked in and state that I worked in as well. And so I think building relationships are very important to me. And so building those relationships is something that I think I thrive on, and something that I think is very important because, again, it goes back to trust. If you trust the people you work with, then you would be successful, want to be successful, and want to maintain that success. So, in, you know, born and raised here in Ozark, I left, but I came back. And so although it's 26 years of education, this is technically year 17 for me because I left. And so this is not something that I'm only going to be here for 3 years. I'm looking at it to be long term.
That leads right into my question, which is your long-term goals. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I see myself being right here, superintendent. I see myself as being the superintendent that right up there at Dr. Mosley. And I know that's kind of put myself, up high, but the thing is that I do because, as I stated before, I'm very competitive, and I can say that in every position I've been in, I either got Teacher of the Year, Principal of the Year, Teacher of the Month, Employee of the Month, and that's in every system state that I've been in. So therefore, I believe that you can see me as the next Superintendent of the Year.
In just a moment.
That's very and very competitive.
We talked the last hour, Ms. Williams, about AI a little bit. Now, it scared, I joked about it earlier, but it scared me to death
Okay.
because of what it can do. What have you seen at the high school level? How has that affected education at the high school level? And what you've learned there, how will that help you as superintendent deal with that issue?
Well, of course, ChatGPT, we've all used it, we all see it, and that's been one of the issues that we have in English, writing our paper as a math teacher, and I'm always a math teacher, so I know I'm a principal, I'm always a math teacher at heart, but the thing is that students being able to, guess what, take a picture of a problem on their phone or anything, and we don't have phones at the high school, but you have homework, and guess what they're doing? That's doing their math for them. They're not learning how to do the math. The issue that we have is because you can't use that. You've got to know how to write a paper. You've got to know how to solve the math problem. So therefore, making sure that our students are actually doing that. So that's where the AI is becoming a problem at the high school level. Now you have the meta glasses. And so with that, that was an issue actually at a softball game, is what I was told. And so it's becoming one of those things where we're going to have to, it's there. We're going to have to embrace it. And in doing that, you're going to have to, because now teachers, just like before, with all those ChatGPT, they can still put it into a process and they can see if it's been plagiarized or if it's done through ChatGPT. So that teachers are using that as well. In the high school, as far as the math, if you get a test and you can't take a picture of the problem anymore, we're going to know that you don't know how to solve the equations. And so the thing is that a superintendent is one of those things that you're going to have to adapt to some of it because that's just where we are. I mean, as you said before, it's out there. Just the other day, the First Lady was walking down with the AI next to her. And so I saw that on TV, and it's coming. The problem is, or the concern is, making sure that we use it effectively and not be afraid to use it.
Should the abuse of that be dealt with as a discipline problem in a school system?
No, because the thing is that just like anything else, it depends, okay? If it's cheating, then you would deal with it as cheating, and we already deal with that now. If it is recording, then again, that's something that we already deal with, recording. If it's recording in a negative way, bullying, it just depends on how you would use that. So it just depends. So yes and no.
Would you say, has it been a major impact
No.
that you've seen?
No, sir, it has not.
I have one more, and I didn't jump over anybody else. Our community, whether it's real or created, is very concerned about discipline in our school system. Let's talk about the high school, because that's where you are.
Yes, sir.
What are we doing right, and what do we need to work on at the high school as far as discipline goes?
What we're doing right is, like I've said before, I put our fearless leadership program at the high school, and we also have for the Hope Institute Academy. And so in putting those there, we have dealt with teaching our students how to self-regulate. And the thing is that I was talking to Mr. Barshaw today, and we were talking about the Fearless Leadership Academy, and he said that, I thought it was really interesting. He said that some of the students that we had discipline issues with, we don't have those discipline issues with anymore. And I said, you're right. I said, because it's one of the things where they learn to handle things themselves. That program has been very beneficial for our students. The thing is that, of course, like everything else, we have outside things that happen outside that make their way into the school. And that's been an issue, and it's happening. Social media is awful. Instagram, because now you have what they call notes. So the thing is that one of those, students now put something and it goes away, but they know that you're talking about them. That's what's coming in. So those outside issues, but once you talk to the students and you find out about it, but building the relationships. I keep going back to relationships because it's very important. But the thing is that by having that relationship, knowing the students, and then they feel comfortable enough to come and talk to us and let us know what's going on. Parents reaching out to let us know something's happening in the community as well, also alleviate those problems in the high school. So that's one of the things that we have to deal with and that we're trying to fix and how been effectively fixing.
Questions do you have of us, if any?
Okay. Well, we talked about communication. So my question is, what communication and involvement style works best for this board?
I think, well, if you started that, well, let's get off this thing.
We've got two presidents, Mr. Hicks, Kerwin, and I've been former president. And in both of us, we agreed that we had a very good relationship with the superintendent, and that we had effective communication, and he could call us at any time, we could call him at any time to resolve problems. Sometimes he just want to call and pick my brain. I want to know what you feel about this. How do you think the other board members might feel about it? Let me explain the situation. I just did something, and this is why I did it. And that really made for some excellent communications between the board and the superintendent, because we had some very effective relationships. We didn't hide anything from each other, and we felt free to disagree or to agree.
Right.
And we weren't judged because we didn't agree.
Right.
So, and we were respected for our beliefs and opinions.
I would just add to that, along with what I said earlier, was that as the newest board member, I have been welcomed not only by the board, but by the superintendent. I've had the opportunity to have plenty of training, but I've always felt there was mutual respect between the superintendent, myself, and all of the board members, that my concerns, my opinions are listened to, even when we disagree, and that we move forward from that. And I'm hoping that with our new superintendent, that I'll have that same relationship, and that he or she in this case, will have the opportunity to have that relationship with all of us.
Same place. We have such a good relationship. We're just hoping to move forward with that. As a board member, sometimes some of the things that you just need someone to be like a sounding board for you. You don't want, like, if you have a teacher issue, you're not wanting to use your husband, you're not wanting to use anybody else, you're wanting to use someone that you know it's gonna be you trust that person, they trust, you're upset, you want to be able to get those feelings and emotions out, and still be heard. And I just feel like that person is very important for you to be able to get that information out to that person. And them to, you don't necessarily want them to solve the problem for you. You just want them to listen sometimes, and you want to be able to listen to that person as well. So I just think it's very important that it's just a mutual We called it a marriage, like earlier, so it is just a mutual marriage where you guys are able to disagree on things, to agree, have opinions, and know that I'm not gonna always agree with everything that's said, but I'm an adult first, and a professional, and I want to make sure that, we're both gonna get our opinions out and just respect each other's, opinions.
And I would add to that we have the same ultimate goal, and that's what's best for our students.
Absolutely.
Because that's why we're here.
Yes.
I serve on a zillion boards and bodies and groups, and one thing that I've observed for the most successful directors or whatever in the chief executive position is what I say is the Paul Harvey version of it. When the person that's the chief executive of the organization is able to share the good, the bad, and the ugly with the voting entity before the voting entity makes a decision, that is what I see as being the best for long-term success over the long term. Instead of a short-term win, building that trust and that relationship, and that I know I'm getting the full story, the whole story, and nothing but the whole story every time I get the story, is very, very, very important.
I don't think that any board member prior to us or us now is any more important in the school system than anybody else, regardless of what their role is. What I've seen as a challenge of 9 years is when there's not that good, consistent communication. The problem we're faced with so much is we're asked out in the community, well, what about so-and-so? And it's tough to deal with if we don't know about it.
Right.
Especially with major issues. I don't mean every day-to-day thing. So that good, consistent communication. I think Mr. Gertman's done a good job of communicating with us. I know this is my second time serving as chair. He will call with an issue and he may say, would you contact the other board? That's great. I don't care how it's done, just to make sure we get it right.
I definitely have enjoyed getting it before Facebook gets it.
Yes.
It just doesn't feel good when someone's posting something, you're like, oh my goodness, so you're looking around and you're like, I have no clue, So he's done a really good job of giving it to us first. And not as an advantage, but I think it's more out of just the mutual respect. Like, we are invested, we love everything about, just like you, we love everything about Ozark City Schools. And we want to make sure that when we're able to say something, we're able to clearly say things with the facts, or we want to stop someone if they're not being truthful and say, that's not the truth, so that we can make sure that we are, again, our own narrative, controlling the narrative.
That's right. Thank you. And I understand, because as a central board member, I agree, having that communication. And so with the director, that's one of the things that we do when we have sometimes in a text message, just a little heads up, this is what I sent out. And that's been I appreciate that. And so I agree with that communication, consistency. Okay, another question is, of the 3 areas that we've mentioned, talking about attendance, teacher retention, student enrollment, which do you feel is the most urgent for our district right now?
I don't want to write, but what has really come out from the community through this has been teacher retention. And the consistency, like yourself, I think you made this reference one time that you knew when you were a 5th grader who your 6th grade teacher was going to be, and that has been consistent through it. So that's obviously a biggie that we've got to really put some attention to.
It's like you said in your interview, having the right people in the right place. I don't know everything. Everybody's not an expert.
Right.
But you have to trust that the people are in those positions are experts, and we can learn and all, come together and teach the children, what they need to know.
And that, the teacher retention, I would agree that would be primary there, because it has such a direct effect on student success. When we constantly have transition with staff and teachers, and it's putting additional stress on our students, and we need to really focus on that.
And I think there's still an ongoing conversation or disagreement on where the teacher retention problem is coming from. Sometimes I think it may be because our teachers are not all residents here. And if they're commuting from Edmond or Troy, and mid-year, there's a position opening up there, hey, why should I travel 70 miles a day when I can just travel 5 or 6 miles, you know that? And then some say, it could be some administrative issues. No one, to my satisfaction, has actually pointed concretely to the cause. We know that there is a problem with teacher retention, but we just don't exactly know. I'm not thoroughly convinced exactly where it's coming from.
And we do realize that that is not solely our problem.
No, it's
That
not.
is a problem
Everywhere.
in every industry.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it is something that we need to focus on and look at causes and look at building from within with our teachers and staff, so that we're constantly improving them, making them want to stay, and looking for our future leaders as well.
That also brings up another major issue. You know, these retention, teacher retention, that's just not a school problem. That's the community problem.
Yeah.
If we don't have housing for teachers, those kind of things. So that's where the communication to me between the school system and the city is so important. And I'd like to see us step that up a little bit in certain areas.
I agree, and that's the thing, because that was one of the things I was thinking about was our commitment to Fort Rucker, because that's one of the things that we've kind of lost along the way. And because when I was in high school, we had as many students from Fort Rucker as Enterprise does, if not more. And so that's one of the things I would like to try and build back again, because we used to have people going to the new thing in Fort Rucker where they would come, and now I'm not sure if we do or not. And so we have a liaison for Fort Rucker, but she's also the same liaison for Enterprise. But I don't think Ozark City, is sending anyone to the newcomers in Fort Rucker. And that's one of the things that we need to start strengthening and trying to build that relationship back as well. And it does come, I think I just saw the other day that there's a realtor that's trying to build small houses, tiny homes out on Bench Street near the gate, Fort Rucker Gate, and for the military families, which is something that is good and that will help that. But the thing is that comes with our community and building that relationship back with Fort Rucker, and also talking with Mayor Ward to see, because I have had a lot of new teachers and new coaches come in, and we could not find housing here in Ozark for them, and they had to go to Enterprise or Dothan for that reason. And so that is something that we need to look at as well.
We may need to step it up a notch too, but Mrs. Brandy am I correct? I think we do attend the Fort Rucker
We do.
thing.
Yes, we
may
do.
need to make that more visible.
We do. I don't believe it's anyone from the schools that's going. I think it's central office staff that's
So
going.
you're saying you think a representative from every school?
Yes, sir.
That's good.
Because they're the ones that can talk about their schools and what's happening at the schools.
Marcy, out of the 3 that you listed,
Mhm.
what do you think is top priority?
I agree with you guys about teacher retention, because I think that when you retain the teachers, it will help your student enrollment, because that was one of the things that people that we lost, students that we lost, that was one of the concerns that I was told, was that the teacher turnover, and I've said it before and I'll continue to say it, but when you think of like when we lost Charlotte at Lisenby, when you lose those elementary principals, they don't know who they're going to have. That affects the parents and the students, because they want to trust the people that are going to be able to, not only, the staff, but also the school. And so when that happened, when we start making changes at not only Lisenby, but also Mixon and DA, that's when you start seeing that turnover. And that was a problem. And so the high school level, of course, that, coaching staff creates that type of turnover and dealing with enrollment. However, I believe that when you have retain the teachers, and there's multiple reasons, Ms. Long, as to why teachers leave, and I can talk about that, but probably not now, but anyways, but the thing is that when that happens, it creates the case where people don't trust and they don't know. And so that creates us losing kids because they don't know who they're gonna have. And so it's a problem. So I think by retaining the teachers is gonna make our students want to stay, build that relationship, and it also helps with attendance as well. So I believe the teacher retention helps everything. So
Retain good
retain the good teachers. And so, and the thing is that, it is not only the teachers, but like administration too, because like I said, I mean, if you think about it, and I was just talking today to someone, in the last few years, every school has had about 3 different principals added in a short amount of time. And that makes a difference.
I think the principal is the major key in
Absolutely.
that. Because if your faculty does not support you or is not behind you, they're not going to stay.
Right.
So that's a big thing. All the way down to every grade level.
Absolutely. Yes, I am.
That feeds back into what we were saying about building the leadership from within.
Right.
That's what we have right now,
Yes.
and building them up to take on those leadership roles.
That's right, and that's the thing, because, prior to this year, and, once losing, Ms. Lowry, Dr. Peterman at the schools, everyone hadn't been from the area. And so now, if you look at Kristen, who is at Miss Pruitt, that's at Lisbon, she's a graduate of Ozark City Schools. Mr. Phillips is a graduate of Ozark City Schools. Mr. Suchman's not, however, his assistant is. She has been here in Ozark, she's military, but her kids went to Ozark City Schools and from, kindergarten up, and then, myself at the high school. And that makes a difference because, like you said, growing your own makes a huge difference. You want those people to come back. And so I think that is important. And, prior to that, since we lost, Dr. Peterman and Lowry at their schools, that was a problem, and the inconsistency, as you can see.
Other questions?
Yes,
If you,
Yeah. Absolutely. So what operational challenges require the most immediate attention that you see here?
repeat that.
What operational challenges require the most immediate attention?
That's a good question.
Operational as far as central office, this way or all over?
All over.
Without being critical,
Without being critical.
I'm not trying to do that, but I think we need better communication.
Okay. I agree.
All the way.
I agree.
I think we have some issues, athletics across the board.
Okay.
I think we have to really get that in a good place. Get athletic director in a good place so that they're the commander of the athletics across the board.
Another question.
That was. All right. Do you have any questions or thoughts about my strategic plan? Anything that you were unsure of, or?
Well, I looked at your plan and you tackled it by months. Why did you do that?
I did it 31 because it's 60, because 90-day or 100-day plan, or however you want to look at it. Again, remember, I'm a math person, so I have to look at things in that sense. And so for me, I look at, because the thing is that the difference between me and the other candidates is that I'm from Ozark. I know what the problems are. I know what needs to happen. And so therefore, it's not going to be one of those things where I have to come in and sit back and see what changes need to be made. I can kind of already come in and hit the ground running and make those changes that need to be made. So I can do
And divide it into incremental.
that's right, yes, ma'am. And the thing is that with a 30-day plan, 60-day plan, 90-day plan, and currently as a principal, because you got to think of it, depending on the start date, I've still got to make sure that Care High is maintained in the things that are done there. So those are the way I have to think about things. So that's why. And those are all my questions.
Board, anything else? Ms. Williams, I will leave with a question. Same question as the last time. What are the major, in your opinion, what are the major challenges for education in Alabama for the next several years?
The lack of teachers. We're losing people wanting to go to school for education. And if you think about it, Ms. Ivy, even Mr. Bull, was an education major. And so the thing is that when we first started, like even when I came back to Ozark 17 years ago, I wasn't going to be, I took a retirement, a teacher that was actually on maternity leave. And they told me, they said, Marcy, this is a job, but she's going out on maternity leave. And if she comes back, she's going to get her job back. So the thing is that I said, okay, now you can, and that was math. So, but now it can be anything. Like we're having a hard time finding teachers. And so, because if you go to, I think it was 2 years ago, we were at Troy and there were hardly any graduates in education at all. So the problem is going to be finding people in that want to teach, because a lot of our they're not going into education. EdTPA has hurt a lot of our students. They don't want to put in the work. So math, like I'm a math major and I'm minor in computer science. And so I added on the education part. That's what a lot of teachers are doing. They're going science or English, but they don't want to be an actual teacher. So that's going to be, I think, our challenges in the next 5 years is finding truly qualified teachers.
I would say increasing those ties with Fort Rucker may help some of that with the new laws pertaining to veteran teachers.
Right, yes.
Why do you think that's so?
Money, TikTok, believe it or not, because you remember with COVID and that whole trend that came out where now it's like teachers are TikTok and everybody's having the I hate my job type of moment, and teaching is not even that bad, but it's gotten so to the point where in elementary schools, the lack of discipline, teachers, getting beat up at school, the lack of support, all of that, I think that's the reason, one of the many reasons.
Anything else? Ms. Williams, anything? We appreciate it. I do want to challenge this board. We've got to do a better job. We've got to be more entertaining. I was sitting there and Carson had his head on his daddy's shoulder.
Sorry.
We're going to take about maybe 10-minute break, and then we will come back and we will evaluate if we're ready to move forward with the vote. And so give us just a few minutes. Thank you. The next part of this is, and I will ask the board in just a minute if they are ready to move to the next phase, which of course would be to recommend one of our two candidates to make an offer that they go enter into contract negotiations with the board. And at that point, once that is settled, then we will come back with a public meeting and actually recommend the person. Okay. Board, are you ready to move forward?
We are.
Okay, everyone's in agreement. Is there a recommendation from the board?
As a board member, I would like to recommend Ms. Marcy Williams for our next superintendent.
Recommendation, Ms. Williams, has been made. Is there a motion we accept?
I move we accept that.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations to Ms. Williams, and we will be in communication with her. And as we've been this whole time, very transparent, and we will continue in those efforts. Thank you for being here. Is there a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?